Hello all, and thank you for attending this session today. Find it fast, leveraging AEM metadata to drive findability and reuse. I'm Susanna Carlisi, a Senior Information Architect at Precision Content. Precision Content is a full-service consultancy specializing in structured content. We help organizations scale and improve their content operations through strategy, training, and technology. Our work focuses on structured authoring methods, DITA XML, content lifecycle management, and systems like AEM. Here's a quick look at some of our clients. Industry leaders trust Precision Content to power their content experiences. Today's session is all about helping internal teams find and manage content more effectively within AEM. Here's what we'll cover: why findability matters, and how to approach it strategically. Then we'll go through the 4 key areas: metadata, folder structure, file naming, and search. Finally, we'll see it in action with a short demo. Creating content is only half the challenge. In structured environments like DITA, where content is broken into small, reusable pieces, findability is essential. It's what makes reuse possible and keeps content accurate and consistent. If teams can't find what already exists, they waste their time recreating it or fall back on outdated versions that are easier to locate. That not only slows things down, it erodes trust in the content. So how did we get here? Organizations are producing more content than ever. To keep up, many teams are shifting to DITA for its powerful reuse capabilities. But that also means working with hundreds or even thousands of small componentized topics. At the same time, there's more need for personalization, localization, and reuse. And this is where things start to break down. Everyone saves content in ways that make sense to them, but what makes sense to one person is often completely unclear to the next. That's how content ends up in the dark. It exists, but no one knows where it is, whether it's current, or who's responsible for it. Without a clear strategy, it becomes hard to manage, let alone find. What are dark assets? Dark assets are content you technically have but can't find. They lack metadata, live in chaotic folder structures, or have poor file naming. When you can't find content, you can't reuse or personalize it. That leads to duplication, inconsistency, and wasted effort. To make content findable again, we use a multi-part framework: metadata, folder structure, AEM search capabilities. When these elements work together, you improve findability. And when content is easier to find, it's easier to reuse. Let's look at each of these, starting with metadata. Taxonomy is the foundation. Think of it as a blueprint for organizing your information, a structured set of concepts like products, audiences, or content types that you use to classify content. If you already have a taxonomy, use it to shape metadata in AEM. If not, start by aligning metadata categories with your business goals and how users actually search for content. Talk to your AEM users across teams. Their input can reveal useful patterns and terminology that guide your metadata decisions. Metadata adds context to your content. It tells us what content is, who it's for, and how to find it. It enables automation and supports both human and machine understanding. Without metadata, content is just a file in a folder. It's hard to find, manage, or reuse. In AEM, you can streamline metadata in a few ways. Start by creating metadata schemas that are tailored to your content. You can add or remove fields, create custom business metadata, or apply different schemas based on file type. Use metadata profiles to automatically apply metadata by folder. This takes the pressure off content authors. You import metadata in bulk using a spreadsheet so you don't have to tag each file manually. Set up filters that support metadata-based search. And extract data attributes from your DITA content to power your search filters. All of this makes metadata easier to apply and more consistent. And automation here isn't just a time saver. It's how you maintain accuracy and scale across a growing content ecosystem. I've provided a high-level view of metadata here, but for detailed information, just scan the QR code on this slide. AEM metadata falls in 4 categories: descriptive, administrative, technical, and process. Understanding these helps you decide which fields to configure and how they support search and reuse. Note that some metadata is populated automatically, such as technical metadata, and other metadata drives workflow, such as process metadata. Let's clarify how metadata and tags work together and when to use each. Metadata is typically aligned with a standard like Dublin Core or a tailored schema, that is, a custom metadata schema, and is managed by an administrator. Tags are hierarchical, more flexible, and user-friendly. They're designed for authors and content strategists to group, organize, and personalize content. Tags provide progressive disclosure and allow users to quickly filter and search large content libraries. But your strategy isn't a one-and-done thing. To make it work long-term, you need metadata governance. That means formalizing how metadata is created and reviewed, involving your stakeholders, and considering the impact of any changes. With governance in place, your strategy isn't just usable, it's sustainable. We'll now examine folder strategy. In AEM, a solid folder structure is essential. Your goal is to create a scalable, repeatable way to organize content across teams. Consistent patterns increase predictability. This makes it easier for authors to know where things belong. This improves usability and supports long-term growth. Start by observing how teams naturally organize content. Look for common patterns to implement globally. And while metadata should drive findability, folder structure still matters in AEM because it controls permissions, that's who can access and edit content, performance, how fast assets load, and processing, such as how workflows are triggered. In short, folders play a foundational role in how content is managed and delivered. This slide provides key guidelines for structuring folders in AEM when working with DITA content. Align the top 3 to 4 folder levels with your business model. These higher levels aren't typically for content. They set up permissions and governance. Keep actual content folders shallow. 3 to 4 levels deep is ideal. A wide structure makes browsing and maintenance easier than a deep one. Use consistent, repeatable folder patterns. Don't create folders by data information types. AEM can automatically manage this. In AEM, don't store more than 1,000 items in a single folder. Aim for 300 to 400 maximum, especially in folders that aren't at the bottom of the hierarchy. Traversing through a folder with hundreds of files will slow down your navigation. Don't use folders for versioning. Use AEM's versioning and baseline features. And only create language folders if you're translating most of the project. Finally, if you are publishing outside of AEM and your publishing system can't reference above the main map level, keep reusable files at the same level as your main maps. Centralize global assets at the highest logical level for reuse. Here's a sample folder structure organized by product line. Notice how graphics, conrefs or content references, and maps are separated for reuse at the global, product line, and guide levels. This example shows a modular structure. Here, each module has its own topics and maps, and shared elements live in global folders. Maps used for publishing are in a single folder and reference the modules below it in the hierarchy. It's a scalable approach that works well for teams managing large content sets. As your business evolves, your folder structure should be flexible enough to adapt with it. When you need to restructure, AEM Guides includes a bulk move tool. It lets you move large volumes of files without breaking links or references. To learn more, scan the QR code on this page. We'll now review the file naming strategy. This slide focuses on file naming. A solid file naming strategy helps with findability. The goal is to predict what is in the file without having to open it. Again, patterns and predictability are key. When your file name includes a verb and a noun, choose the order based on how your users search. Here's an example for a topic on submitting a request. If your users think of the object first, use request submit.dita. If they focus on the task or the action, use submit request.dita. There's no one right order, just match how your users think. One way to create file names is to use metadata as part of the file name. Doing so can promote categorization and disambiguation. It can facilitate automation, increase findability, and preserve portability across all required environments. Here are some examples of metadata-rich file names. It includes business context, file category or information type, a variant, a hex code disambiguator, and a descriptor, which describes the content. Each part of the file name adds meaning and supports automation and filtering. Here are some guidelines for file naming. Use only letters, numbers, and hyphens, no special characters or spaces. Keep names short, ideally under 50 characters to avoid issues with path limits. Avoid adding version info like V1 or final to your file names. Make sure your naming convention is easy to follow. For metadata-rich file names, organize fields from least to most specific. Use underscores to separate sections and Pascal case in the descriptor. Reserve enough space, 25 to 30 characters, for a clear descriptor. And be consistent with the length and order of each section preceding the descriptor. And now we will discuss search in AEM. AEM's search rail uses metadata to power faceted search. You can filter by content type, tags, status, and more across folders. Apply multiple filters at once to narrow down results quickly and precisely. When you're not sure which folder a file is in, metadata and tags help you find it anyway, cutting across folder boundaries. That makes search far more reliable, especially in large, complex repositories. Once you filter your search, you can save it as a smart collection. Smart collections update automatically when new assets match the same criteria. They're useful for repeatable tasks and can be shared with other users. To make them even more useful, ask your content creators what they search for most often and build collections around those needs. AEM Guides also includes robust search filters. You can use the advanced filter to search by tag, last modified date, who locked the file, and more. You can also add a filter. And over on the right, the Browse view lets you filter by metadata within a selected folder path. This makes it easier to drill into just the content you need. The AEM Guides provides repository and browse search, as shown here. Before we move on to the demo, I'd like to share some references that can help you with your findability strategy. If you'd like to explore more on your own, here are some excellent resources. You can scan any of the QR codes to go straight to the content, or feel free to take a screenshot of this slide and refer to it later as you need. Now, let's take a look at how all this works in AEM. Before we begin, note that some of the procedures I will demonstrate require administrator privileges. Also, I will be moving between AEM assets and guides frequently. Let's start with metadata schemas. Click Tools, Assets, Metadata Schemas. The first two metadata schemas listed are custom schemas I created by copying the default schema and then customizing it. Click the schema name to see file type specific schemas. If no match is found for the file type, the general schema applies. In this case, the precision content schema. Select the schema and click Edit. I can add or remove tabs and metadata fields. I can create metadata fields using the components on the right. Here's a drop-down field that I created. It can have 3 values, as you can see on the right: best practice, operating procedure, and playbook. This property is a custom one. It has the prefix PC for precision content. Note that Dublin Core metadata has the prefix DC. To create custom metadata, you will first have to register a namespace and ensure users have read, write, delete access to the conf folder in AEM. I won't save the schema since I've already saved it. To apply the metadata schema to a folder, you select it and click Apply to Folder. Then navigate to the content folder you want the schema to apply to. You can assign different schemas to different folders depending on the content type. Note that AEM also supports folder metadata schemas to apply metadata directly to folders. Let's go to metadata profiles. A metadata profile in AEM automatically applies metadata to assets based on their folder location, so keep this in mind when designing your folder structure. Here, I've created this playbooks profile, and it automatically assigns the content type of playbook to any folder I apply this to. Note that after creating the profile, existing assets must be reprocessed, but new assets get the metadata automatically. So let's go to Guides. This is my Playbooks folder where I applied that metadata profile. I'll create a new topic. Then I can check the properties, click Edit More Properties to see the metadata, and you'll see that the content type of Playbook is automatically assigned. Now let's look at tags. To configure tags, you click Tools, General, and Tagging. Here are the tags I configured. Tags help narrow searches with a structured hierarchy. Back to my folder, we can apply tags directly to files in a folder. For example, I'll select these files, click Properties, and assign a tag, Information Architecture. Tags can also be applied in bulk to a DITA map. So here's my DITA map. I can click the options and open Map Dashboard. Click Topics, and then you can select topics, click Show Tags, and you can apply tags. Here, I'll apply Writing Methodology. Note that you can apply tags individually to files or to a set of selected files. Now let's look at exporting and importing metadata. So here, I'm in a folder called Benefits, and looking at the properties of one of the files, you'll see that there's no description and no tags applied. Now I'll show you how to export metadata. I'm going to click on my folder and export metadata. And you select a file name and then click Export. Now, I've already done this, and I'll show you the CSV file. Looks something like this, with the path and all the metadata that's applied. You can modify this same spreadsheet to change metadata or add new metadata fields, but I created a new one just so that it's more readable. I've added a description to each file and a tag. So using this spreadsheet is really useful when you need to apply unique metadata across a lot of files. It's easier to do it in a spreadsheet than modifying every file individually in AEM. And going back to AEM, I can import my metadata. And it doesn't matter where you are in the UI, because your spreadsheet has the path for all the files. So I've clicked the Create button, click Metadata, I'll select my file, I'll keep everything else as default and click Import, and you'll get a success message. Now going back in that folder, I'll select a file and click Properties, and you'll see the description is there and a tag is applied. Next, I'll show you how to extract metadata from DITA source files. In some cases, metadata lives in the DITA source files as attributes, and you want to keep them in the source files for portability across environments. So in this example, I'm actually going to extract the revision date. Now, to extract any metadata from DITA source files, first you need to go into the AEM web console, and you're going to modify this configuration com.adobe.fmdita.config.config manager. You will scroll down and enable DITA metadata extraction and save. And then in CRXDE, you can modify the serialization file. Now, if the serialization file is not in this folder, apps fmdita config serialization config.xml, you can overlay it from the libs folder to the apps folder. Now, in this file, you're going to define an attribute group if applicable, and specify the XPath to the element you want to extract for indexing. Every time you update the serialization file, you need to open and save the web console configuration again. Now, new files will automatically extract that metadata, but for existing files, you need to run a DITA metadata extraction job. And you can get there from Tools, Guides, DITA metadata extraction. I'm going to select the folder. Now, I don't have a lot of files on this system, so it will be quick, but if you do, this might take some time. And click OK. Now, note that you don't need to go through the procedure of modifying the serialization file to perform this for any prologue elements and metadata, because those are indexed by default. Now that I've extracted my DITA metadata, I want to customize my search for it. So I'm going to click on Tools, General, and Search Forms, and modify the Assets Admin search rail. Now here I've already modified my search filter rail. I've added the DITA element predicate, I've added the content type, and I've added the property predicate, which is the DITA metadata I just extracted. And I've also included this placeholder to remind users how they need to enter the date. So going back to Assets, I'll click here and click Filter. And you will see that I have DITA element and content type and the revision date that I added. Now I'll search on revision date. I know that I have this revision date. And there is my file. Okay. And if I edit this DITA map, you will see my attribute is here. Going back to search, I am now going to search on my content type, playbook, and in this example, I want to search for files that are related to information architecture, and I see that there are some that are not. So I want to further refine this search. So I will also apply a tag, information architecture, and now I have just the files that have the subject of information architecture. Note that once I set all my search criteria, I might want to save it as a smart collection if it's a search that I will perform often. And then anytime new assets meet the same criteria, your smart collection will be updated. Now, I'm just going to quickly demonstrate search and guides. And let's say I want to modify a map to add more content to it. We'll to topic reference, and I can click on filters and apply tags or my custom content type. I've added this. There are all my playbook files. And the way that I customized this UI is through the folder profile. So going to the folder profile, click on XML editor configuration and edit. You can download this UI config JSON file, modify it, and upload it back. And I'll show you the one that I have configured. I've added the content type with the 3 options, and then I uploaded this back into my folder profile, and that's how I had that customized guide search. So that concludes this demo. Remember, the right strategy keeps your content reusable, findable, and ready for whatever comes next. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Adobe DITA World.